But let's change gears here and talk about actionable Week 8 picks, and who better to join me than Evan Abrams, who's also a regular on the TAM Pod and has an article live over on the Action Network website where he breaks down trends to know for every single game, every single week. It's about that time where Evan Abrams, the numbers guy, tells me why I'm either right or wrong on this week's game. Ev Abrams, the numbers guy. Ev. I still have to get that in, Evan, even though it's a little untraditional there, but we got to get right to it. Rams, Vikings, Thursday Night Football. Tell me why I am right or wrong with the LA Rams. Listen, it's a short week for Minnesota. We saw a grueling game against the Detroit Lions, and yes, it's a short week for the Rams, but they're getting healthier. Cooper Kupp expected to return as long as he is not traded. The luck rankings also like the Rams in this one. I just got to throw that out there to make me feel better about myself. And then you look at the Rams. They've kept every game close except for Arizona. We've got McVay against one of the guys in his coaching tree. It always feels like, the dad of the coaching tree always ends up on top by the end of it. It just feels like this is one of those games everyone's expecting a Minnesota bounce back. I'm expecting the Rams to at least keep it close here. So grabbing that key number of 3 is where I'm thinking. Tell me why the trends say I'm either smart here or I might be too far in over my head.
Yeah, well, the dad's getting 3 points at home in this one, so that's a nice start there. But the interesting thing about the line, before I get into this, the look ahead. Now, the look ahead was set way before the season and this and that. Actually, had the Rams -3.5. Wow. So you have a large flip just based off of how the season's gone, the injuries, etc., which is interesting nonetheless. But I think the angle to take here is Minnesota coming off being undefeated, an emotional loss, a tough game. So since 1990 in the wildcard era, undefeated teams after suffering their first loss straight up in week 8 or later, they are 29-21 straight up. Sounds good, but they have difficulty covering the number at 22-28 against the spread, which is expected. Now, teams who are undefeated and then suffer their first loss who have to play on Thursday Night Football, which again, short rest, difficult situation, 6-10, 5-11 against the spread. So kind of pulls back a little bit. And that kind of points you towards the direction that I'm going to talk about right now, which is Sean McVay. So in McVay's career, he is 19-16-2 against the spread in night games. Pretty mediocre. But if you look on short rest, he's 6-3 against the spread. He started his career 0-3 in that spot, learned and has won and covered 6 in a row. So nice spot for McVay. Now, the thing that's kind of going around everywhere is the impact of the Lions. I've seen it in a few places. So teams after facing Detroit this year, 0-4 straight up, 0-4 against the spread, failing to cover the number by about 25 to 26 points per game, which is crazy in itself. But the last 3 seasons, 14-23 against the spread and on the number. So a little noise, sure, but a little bit of impact, maybe.
Yeah, it definitely feels like maybe some alt lines are in play based on that trend with the Lions. That's where my mind's going. But listen, it's McVay. As long as Stafford and Cooper Kupp are playing for the Rams on Thursday, it feels like the Rams at 3+ is a go. The other one, you mentioned it. The Lions just had an emotional win over the Vikings. The Vikings had the emotional loss. The Lions won on a walk-off field goal. They also have Green Bay Packers next weekend in Green Bay. So I think this is a little sandwich spot, a little look-ahead opportunity. The Titans getting 11 points. You look at the Tennessee Titans and you're like, it's the Titans. They're atrocious. They're not good. But they're actually, the defense, 11th in DVOA, 6th against the run. I think they can actually, put a little bit of a stoppage on the Lions, who I don't expect to flash, flea flickers and all these other crazy plays that they can bring out of their bag, and they're going to save it for Green Bay. So I think this is rock bottom of the market. DeAndre Hopkins is gone. I don't think that really matters much for the Titans, to be honest with you. I just think this is, the ultimate buy low spot, trash bag, hold your nose, get the Titans at over 10.5. What are the numbers saying on this one? Is this the classic look ahead spot, or am I just, on a war zone path that is Ben Johnson and Dan Campbell?
Yeah, breaking news to anyone out there, DeAndre Hopkins doesn't move the line, especially for the Titans. But looking at this line in itself, we got some history, Charles. So the Lions are 11-point favorites this week at the current moment. If it closes at 11 or higher, this would be the largest spread for the Detroit Lions as a favorite since September of 1996.
Wow.
Against the Bucks. They were a 12-point favorite behind 125 rushing yards by Barry Sanders. That was 459 games ago for Detroit. So this is a whole new world in terms of the circumstances. Now you look at the number in itself. I think it's just probably worth mentioning in the regular season, past 4 years, the Lions are 40-17 against the spread. 70%. That now entering the year, they had the best 3-year stretch against the spread for any team since the 16-18 Patriots. And at this rate, through 4 years, they would be the best covering team in the wild card era since 1990. So you are going up against a bit of a juggernaut here, but let me give you a little bit of some confidence in this one because I kind of like your Tennessee number. And I think there is some value there just based off how great they've been playing. So teams averaging 30 points per game plus are just 58-64 and 2 against the spread as a double-digit favorite of the last 20 years in the regular season. After the month of September, that drops to 14-16 ATS. Now, when those teams are on a 4+ game win streak, 24-34 against the spread. I gave you 3 numbers. All 3 of them were under 500 ATS. Tight margins. You know, a lot of different circumstances going into each of them, but it's just probably telling you that the line is a tad bit high. And again, you don't know Levis, you don't know Rudolph. I think you would probably prefer Rudolph just because looking inside the numbers, less turnover worthy throws. I think Rudolph is either 10-5 or 10-6 against the spread in his career. So he usually keeps those games close. So you're going to hope for that in this one.
Yeah, overwhelming majority of the tickets coming in on Detroit. It feels like one of those spots where the Titans might get right. And you mentioned September 1996. I was in my first trimester as in my mom's stomach. So throw back to that one. I don't remember that. Let's move to the other one here. The Las Vegas Raiders +10 against Kansas City Chiefs. Listen, who the hell is left in Kansas City? That's my question for you. Juju Smith-Schuster is out. Isaiah Pacheco, Rashee Rice, Hollywood Brown, all out. DeAndre Hopkins is coming, but we talked about it. He's not moving a line, and even if he suits up, he's not going to be familiar with this offensive playbook. We saw Amari Cooper. Yeah, he caught the touchdown, but he was largely a non-factor for Buffalo in that first game. Mahomes as a favorite of 7 or more. I did my own research. 44% against the spread, so I'm liking this number above 10. I think it's one of those backdoor opportunities. Also, just a large number in general. The Chiefs, we know how good they are at just wasting clock. Mahomes in particular, those second half unders just, chugging away. He won't put up extra points. He'll play for, just running out the clock. I know the Raiders are bad. I honestly feel more confident with Gardner Minshew over O'Connell. I know he lets it swing, but I definitely feel more confident with him under center. So do the trends agree with me on the Vegas Raiders catching 10 against the Chiefs?
I'll go through a few little nuggets here just to kind of set you up. So the thing I found interesting with the Raiders is they're having a tough time even staying close in games this year. They've fallen behind by double digits in each of their 7 games. They're just the 4th team to do that over the last 30 years. So they are falling behind, which is never a good sign unless you're down 10 and then Mahomes is going to come back. Unless you're up 10, then Mahomes is going to come back. But they've been falling behind, so not great there. But then you look at Kansas City. So 6-0. And they're only plus 43 in terms of margin this season. Now, in the Super Bowl era, you've only had 3 teams with a worse point differential than Kansas City to start 6-0. So the margins are razor thin. They haven't beaten a team by 20 plus in 27 consecutive games. So they're not blowing people out. Even if you're within that range, you expect maybe Vegas to get that touchdown to let you back in. That is the longest streak since the 2005 Ravens. And then I'll leave you with this. Now, we haven't had our first team in this spot this year, but we might be getting our first double-digit division dog. In November earlier, they are 85, 56-6 against the spread since 2003, 60% with a 16% return on investment. I have a hard time telling you to take Kansas City in this one. Mahomes is 6-0 against a second half spread this year, tied for the best record in the NFL with Caleb Williams.
Wow.
But in this circumstance, I would probably say the Raiders at 10 is a fine play. On the round table we did yesterday with Brandon Anderson and Glasheen, we were trying to talk about all the double-digit dogs this week, anyone we like the best. I took the Raiders, so I'm with you in this one, and I think that this number is just a little high. I'm a guy who tends to try to fade Mahomes, and my wallet is showing for it. So I'm gonna back you in this one, Charles.
Yeah, luckily I held off last week with the 49ers on deck.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, Mahomes less than 3. I'm gonna have to stay away.
Yeah.
I learned the hard way in the Super Bowl last year. So this time though, fading off that win. Travis Kelce he was too busy partying in the offseason, not fully in shape right now. He's got love bug eyes and all of that. So I think that the Raiders can keep it close here. It's ugly. I'm coming to you with the Raiders. I'm coming to you with the Titans and the Rams against, juggernaut offenses thus far. But that's why we have to discuss it. Hopefully the
3 dogs. What could go wrong?
I know 3 dogs after the road favorites and just favorites in general have been dominating the NFL last couple of weeks. But Evan Abrams, appreciate you hopping on, and we'll talk again next week.
See you later, Charles.